بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا وحبيبنا وقرة أعيننا قائد الغر المحجلين وشفيع المذنبين وصاحب الحوض المورود ولواء المحمود محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. So alhamdulillah, we are into the last 10 nights of Ramadan, this night being the 21st night, one of the first odd night in the odd nights of Ramadan that the Prophet ﷺ had commanded us to make iltimas of Laylat al-Qadr, to seek out the night of power or Laylat al-Qadr, التي هي خير من ألف شهر, the one that is better than 1,000 nights of worship. And in our seeking out Laylat al-Qadr, we are seeking out Sahib Laylat al-Qadr, the one who is the possessor and sovereign and establisher of Laylat al-Qadr, namely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this great blessing, this immense blessing, this ni'mah of having in a very short time a great opportunity to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if it's a single night, is something that is unique about this ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this community and nation of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so it behooves us to try to avail ourselves of that and take every advantage. And alhamdulillah, we have been reading almost every day from these discourses of Shaykh al-Qadir al-Jilani radiallahu anhu, al-Fath al-Rabbani, al-Rabbani, the sublime revelation and the merciful divine outpourings. And it's in nights like these that Arifun like Shaykh Abd al-Jilani and like Muhyiddin ibn Arabi al-Hatimi and like Sayyid Abu Hassan al-Shadhili and like Abu al-Abbas al-Mursi and Sayyid al-Naqshbandi and many others had these types of futuhat, right? These types of openings and these types of understandings. So sometimes they come in nights like these that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifies, and sometimes they come in the nights of qabd, right? In the seasons of qabd, which are the seasons of or nights of restriction or constriction, where we feel things are not as optimistic as we would like them to be, but in that lowering of our guard, as it were, we make ourselves vulnerable, and vulnerable in the sense as more availed of the certain types of nafahat, certain types of openings that only come to people who have this kasr, this munkasirat al-qulub, as stated in the Hadith Qudsi, Inna Allah and al-muqassirat qulubuhum min ajli. Allah is with the brokenhearted for my sake. And so this brokenheartedness is something that we should not necessarily repel and seek to get rid of, but seek it as an opportunity. As we said in the previous session, the Mawlana Rumi parable of the guest house. So make it comfortable for this particular guest. If you feel brokenhearted, if you feel like there's nowhere else to turn, if you feel that all of the subul nafidat, all of the means that were at your disposal, or you thought you were at their disposal, are no longer working or no longer there and not quite functioning in the manner that you had expected, these are actually bisharat. That's a bishara. That is an immense gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He has now lifted at least partially the veil. The veil of what? The veil of thinking between you and Allah, thinking that these intermediate means have some power and significance of their own without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So intellectually we acknowledge that, we know that, from what we witness in our heart, that is another matter altogether. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send to us experiences, inshallah, by which hopefully one step after the other, one step closer as we get to that particular point, and it becomes to come in focus. So that's our hope, and that's our amal in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we've reached the 54th discourse out of 62. So we're also making our steps, making our way towards this book, alhamdulillah, and I hope it's been beneficial for those who have been participating. I know it's been beneficial for me, and that's kind of one of my intention actually was I can derive benefit, because it's one thing to kind of read something on your own, but there's another level of benefit when you're not just reading on your own, but you feel like you have to explain it to others. So that was my intention. I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept that from me and from you, and also to put it in the Mizan al-Hasanat, the scales of Sayyid al-Qadir al-Jilani, and all of those who transcribed this and wrote it down and then transmitted it, not just by word and not just by deed, but also by hal, by state. So in this particular discourse, he talks a little bit about, which we're going to get to, the Arif, Simat al-Arif, which we've seen before, like the attributes of what's an Arif, as opposed to someone who is on the level of Iman. And we know the Shaykh kind of has this this paradigm where he says the first step is Islam, so doing the outward acts, and then you get to Iman, which is internalization of the meanings of these outward acts, and then what he describes as Iqan. Right, Iqan means a greater certainty and I would say enthusiasm and emphasis for the divine. And then after that, he says you get to levels of ma'rifah, and then wilaya, right? And then this special type of ma'rifah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then mahabba and love and rida and uns and haiba and all those other things. But clearly the path begins with taqwa. And taqwa being defined as doing the commands of God and avoiding the prohibitions. And anyone who claims a path any other than this, and somehow that they can skirt around it, and they found a shortcut, and you need not worry too much about the Sharia, and don't worry too much about dhikr or Quran, or that is not the way of our Prophet ﷺ, and it's not the way of the heirs of our Prophet ﷺ. So I'll just read maybe the first few lines and then we'll go deeper into the discourse. قال رضي الله عنه: يا غلام خطوتان وقد وصلت، خطوة من الدنيا وخطوة عن الدنيا وخطوة عن الأخرى، خطوة عن نفسك وخطوة عن الخلق، اترك هذا الظاهر وقد وصلت إلى الباطن، بداية ثم نهاية، ابتدئ أنت والتمام على الله عز وجل، منك البداية ومن الله عز وجل النهاية، خذ المر والزنبيل واقعد على باب العمل حتى إذا طلبت تكون قريبا من المستعمل، ولا تقعد على فراشك وتحت لحافك ومن وراء أغلاق ثم تطلب العمل والاستعمال، أدنو قلبك من الذكر من الذكر وذكر يوم النشور، تفكر في القبور الدوارس، تفكر كيف يحشر الحق عز وجل جميع الخلق ويقيمهم بين يديه، إذا دمت على هذا التفكر زالت قساوة قلبك وصفع من كدره، إذا كان البناء على أساس ثبت ورسخ، وإذا لم يكن على أساس تعجل وقوعه، إذا بنيت حالك على أحكام الحكم الظاهر لا يقدر أحد من الخلق على نقده، وإذا لم تبنيه على ذلك لا يثبت لك حالا ولا تصل إلى مقام، ولا تزال قلوب الصديقين تنقتك وتتمنى ألا تراك. So he says 2 steps and you have arrived. 1 step away from this world and 1 step away from the hereafter. 1 step away from your lower self and 1 step away from creatures. Again, we're talking about detachment of the heart. So even the hereafter is a indication of iqbal Allahu alayk. It's a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making iqbal towards you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making his way towards you, so to speak. And this is what we mean by al-qalb yuqbil ala Allah, so that the heart extends towards and seeks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then after that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yuqbilu alayk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then will come and make the rest of the way. And this is what the Shaykh is saying here. So he says, leave this outer, this zahir, and you will reach the inner, the batin, initially, and then finally. You must be ready to make a start, while the completion of the process depends upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? He is the one who will complete it for you. But our role is التوجه إليه, صدق التوجه. So this idea of توجه اتجاه, changing your direction, looking in the right way. Our prayer, for example, has a direction, has a qibla. فَإِنَّمَا تَوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. So whichever way you turn, there is the countenance of God. But even despite that reality, that haqiqah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us to focus by giving us a singular direction, which we call the qibla. And since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His knowledge and His mercy are encompassing all of creation, encompassing all of the universe, so it's not like you can just point to anywhere, because you'll find it anywhere. But in order to help us focus in the prayer direction itself and direction in general, He made the direction of prayer the qibla, namely the Kaaba in Mecca. And that represents a way for us to connect with the divine based upon our own limitations. So we don't say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is only in the direction of the prayer in the Kaaba, but based upon our own limitations, our limitations of comprehension, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designated, so that we may find our way and have a kind of a blueprint, an easier path by which to find it. And that's why there's this sanctity of the prayer space in front of you. You know, the hadith that mentioned that if someone tries to cross in front of you, then you have to stop them. And if they insist on crossing, then they're like a devil. Why so much emphasis on what is a few feet or a meter or two in front of you, and that people shouldn't cross in front of you? Because this has been sanctified, because you are facing towards God in that direction. And so, unlike other traditions where the sanctity of the church, for example, or the temple, kind of lies in the altar area in the front, where the priest or where the rabbi or whoever is going to be up front, and the focus becomes on what's going on towards the front. For us, for Muslims, that's not really the case. So yes, we have the imam who's in the front, and imam means one who is leading or in the front, but that is more of a matter of convention and convenience rather than anything else. But the real focus then is actually your place of sujood, right? Is the space that's right in front of you. The imam is in front merely to lead us in that. So the preference, for example, for men to be in the first row is because that means they are the ones who hastened to make it to the prayer. So it's symbolic of the meaning that they didn't let anything delay them, so they got there earlier, and so they were able to be in the first row. And that's why there's a superiority attached to it. But not because the rows in the back are less or deficient or have a shortcoming, or there's more action, so to speak, going on in the front area or the front row. No, it's because it symbolizes and it's indicative of their hastening towards the prayer. So that means any prayer space can be sanctified if you designate it as such. So when the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ju'ilat al-ard masjid wa tuhura," "Ju'ilat al-ardu masjidan wa tuhura," the earth, the whole earth has been made for me a mosque, a masjid, anywhere that you choose to pray. If it's out on the side of the street, if it's in the desert, if it's in the school playground, it doesn't matter. It now has become a masjid because of you praying there. Wa tuhura, right? And you can use the earth as a means by which to purify yourself if you don't have access to water. That's also min al-khususiyat al-Muhammadiyya. This is something very specific to the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Sahaba, when they saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam praying in different places in Medina, they would designate that place a masjid. Some of you who are on with us with the Umrah trip, alhamdulillah, that we did this past November, some of us had the opportunity to see where some of these masajid were, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would just he would pray 2 rak'ahs there, and then they make it a masjid. Is-Sab' al-Masajid, the 7 mosques that are by al-Khandaq. Also, this is where the Sahaba were posted during the Khandaq, and so the place of Umar and the place of Abu Bakr and the place of Sayyidina Ali. So these places were then sanctified and then preserved in a sense, in a historical sense, for people to see them, because they were sanctified by the place of prayer that they were used as in terms of the Sahaba, in terms of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And people have remarked, if you walk into the khalwa, which would be like a room of someone who's a fervent worshipper or arif billah, and a place that they designated as their place of prayer, there is a vibe, for lack of a better word, or there is a feeling of peace and tranquility, and like this place is sacred, right? Because that's how it was used. And we can do that with our own places of worship. That's why we generally recommend to people, or from what we heard from our teachers, that to designate at least a corner in your house that you're going to have as your zawiyah, so to speak. And zawiyah just means corner, actually, your corner of your house that you're going to designate for dhikr, for prayer, for quiet contemplation, things like that. And if you have children and other members of the household who are impressionable, it's good for them to see that, to see like, oh, this is what people do. You need to have a place in your house that you can do that with, and you can pray in there, and you can make a dhikr, and it's kind of away from things, and there's no TV or video screens or anything like that in that area. And in a sense, you sanctify the house. And the Prophet ﷺ encouraged people to sanctify their houses by reading Quran. And he said the house that has Quran read in it versus the house that doesn't have Quran read in it is like a house that has people in it, and one that's a Bayt al-Kharib, and one that's a desolate, abandoned home. So it's almost like kharab from the spiritual aspect, the spiritual perspective. Someone's house that doesn't have the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it. So we digressed a little bit, but back to the text. He says, from you, the beginning, and from Allah, the conclusion. Take the shovel and the palm leaf basket and sit at the entrance to the place of work, so that when you're called, you will be close to the employer, namely Allah al-Musta'mil, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not sit on your mattress, under your blanket, and behind locked doors, then expect to find work and employment. In other words, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to use you, right, in His way of good works. And so, one thing, even though we talk about the acceptance of al-Qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what He has decreed, this should in no way make anyone feel like they can just sit on their laurels and do nothing. The Prophet ﷺ was always looking for al-mushammirin, people who are ready to roll up their sleeves and actually do something. And if anything that we've learned from our reading of the Quran, there's always this distinction made between هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون والذين يعملون ولا يعملون. The distinction between those who know and those who don't know, those who do and those who don't do. الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. You see this repeated many times throughout the Quran, and this exhortation to be from the aminin, to be from the mu'minin, to be from al-muhsinin, and not to be from the mufsidin, right? The mufsid is the one who sows corruption and brings about destruction, not just to themselves but to others, because of their negligence and because of their ignorance, because of their reactive nature to how they deal with things. Amma al-muhsin wal-muslih, right? The muslih is the one who rectifies things and puts things back in their proper place. The muhsin, who does everything with care and with compassion and with divine mandate and sanction, the muhsin. So we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be just sitting around and just hoping for things to change and hoping for things to get better. No, we keep doing, and we roll up our sleeves and we get to work, but at the same time our hearts are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, musabbib al-asbab, and the one who's going to bring about any results. So our results is our striving. That's as far as we take it in terms of our expectations of results. And what happens in terms of results out of what we might do, that's Allah's business. That's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So make your wasa'il al-maqasid. Make the means that you take, they are your objective to begin with. So you fulfilled your objective if you take the proper means. So in terms of means, in terms of dunyawi means, so means in terms of husul al-dunya, things we need of the dunya, like making a living, and if you want to get cucumbers and tomatoes in your garden, well, you have to plant a garden first, and don't just look out your window and hope that one day tomatoes and cucumbers are just going to come out of the ground. No, you have to actually do it. And then when you plant the seeds and you irrigate it and you take care of it, is there a guarantee that the tomatoes and cucumbers will come? No, there's no guarantee. But you've done what's your part, which is the taking the means. So those are in terms of means of the natural world. Then also take means that are of the spiritual realm. So don't expect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to answer your dua and give you ilm al-awwalin wal-akhirin, and the ma'rifah of the first and the last, and and nafahat and barakat and all these words we use all the time, and you're just sitting at home and just lounging around and watching soap serials and hoping that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will change things for you. No, you have to be out there. You have to, as he said, get out from under your covers on your bed and get out and do, right? And seek and pray the 5 prayers and do dhikr and contemplate the mastery of creation, and help the needy, help the sick, visit the sick, shahid al-janaiz, walk with the janazah, the funeral prayers. There, as much as there is need out there, as people are in need, one cannot say, I don't know where to start. I have nothing to do. Where do I go? What do I do? No, we have immense, tremendous need everywhere. وَالْأَقْرَبُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and those who are closest to you are the ones that you have to start with. And obviously we start with ourselves, but then from there on, our families, our neighbors, our community members, so forth. So I don't think it's really a valid excuse to say I'm not sure what to do, and nobody needs me, and make yourself needed, right? There's need, and if you have the sincerity in your heart, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then will yasta'miluka, as he says here. But you have to be ready, right? You have to be waiting and put yourself in a position in the line where then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to facilitate that for you, inshallah. So he says, keep your heart close to remembrance, dhikr, and remind it of the day of resurrection. Reflect on those crumbling tombs, dawaris, as he said, visit the cemetery regularly. If you live in a place that you have access to some of the maqams of al-awliya, right? We're not, as some of the people describe as quburiyun, or any of that nonsense, or grave worshippers. We're not going to worship the grave. The reason we worship graves, number one, is al-i'tibar, to remind ourselves this is where we are going. And then if there are salihin, if there are righteous people, and people that we consider to be of our ummah of awliya, then it is the sunnah also to visit these places. The Prophet ﷺ would make a point to go at least once a week, generally on Saturdays, to Shuhada Uhud. So he had the Baqiyah right next to his house, and that he was regularly. And then once a week he would ride out to Uhud, which is a bit of a distance out, it's not that close, to visit Shuhada Uhud and primarily Sayyidina Hamza, radiallahu anhu. So it wasn't just for i'tibar, it was also to make a visit to specific people because of their, inshallah, their maqam, their place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Imam al-Shafi'i used to say about the grave of one of Ahl al-Bayt, Musa al-Qadim, in Iraq, that it's a tiryaq al-mujarrab, that this place is the tried and true place for your dua to be answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what tiryaq means. Al-mujarrab, mujarrab, tried and true. We go there, we make dua, and things happen, comes true. So, naltamis, right? This is what we call bab al-iltimas. We don't say for certain 100%, but if there is an indication and the sharia is confirming it, then we do what's called iltimas. We seek it out, and then we leave the results with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, as we said, the means are our results, and then we leave the actual results, what comes after that, of anything, up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. هكذا تكون مطمئن القلب. This way you'll be assured of heart, and you are, trying to do your best to avail yourself of the mercy and of the nafahat and the barakat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said, reflect on how the Lord of Truth, al-Haq, will assemble all creatures and resurrect them in his presence. If you persist in this reflection, your heart will lose its hardness and be purified of its murky confusion, right? Qasawat al-qalb. So, qasawat al-qalb, qaswat al-qalb means hardness of heart, like an unfeeling heart. Like, I don't feel anything, I feel just apathetic, I feel unmotivated, I don't feel like a sense of urgency. These are alamat qasawat al-qalb, right, of a heart that is hardened. So the heart then needs to be kind of softened. How does one soften the heart? Reflect on what is muhaqqaq, reflect on what is going to be true. And if it's true tomorrow, it's like it's true today. And these graves, you're going to be in one of them sooner or later, and you don't know when. This pandemic that's we're living through right now, and it seems to choose people at random, and it's not just the narrative in the beginning that we had of people who had underlying conditions and elderly and so forth. It also seems to be affecting people now, even children and things like that. And so no one knows if they're going to be the next one, or if they get it, if they're going to make it through it or not make through it. And so it's very well might be. This is now, it's palpable, it's closer. You could be one of those people who is next in the grave. And so you have to be in a place spiritually to be ready for that, right? And this can come at any time. It doesn't matter if you're 22 or 32 or 52 or 102. This moment, akhirah, next life, and all the things that we've been preparing for our whole life, that we've been talking about, and the reckoning and the day of resurrection, and su'al munkar and nakir, and the questioning in the grave, and crossing the sirat, all of that becomes immediate as soon as you die. As soon as you pass away and you cross into the next realm, basaruka al-yawma hadid, as the Quran says, your eyesight, how you see reality, is going to be hadid, steel. In other words, piercing like steel. There will be no mistake, there'll be no doubt anymore, right? If you had any doubts, but we don't want to have any doubts right now. The Shaykh mentions later on in the discourse that Sayyidina Ali said, if the veil is lifted, mazdidtu yaqinan. لو كشف إلي الحجاب أو كشف عن الحقائق ما زدت يقينا. If the veil of all these things that we know to be true in the other realm was lifted and I could see them with my eyes, I would not have any extra certainty. My certainty is as if I know they're there. I don't need to actually see them with my eyes, right? Just like if you hear something going on in an outside room or behind a curtain, and there's stuff going on that you can't see it, but you have certainty that it's there, right? So this was the iman of Sayyidina Ali alayhi salam, wa karramallahu wajhah. So if the building rests on a good foundation, it will be firm and stable. But if it has no foundation, its collapse will come quickly. If you construct your state hal on the rules, the ahkam of the outer law, hukm al-zahir, yani sharia, no creature will be able to demolish it. But if you do not construct it on this basis, no state will be firmly established for you. You will not attain to any station, maqam, and the hearts of the champions of truth, or siddiqun, will always despise you and prefer not to see you. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that siddiqun want to see us despite what is in our hearts. So we want to be ala al-ahkam al-zahira. So we want to be in a place where the lovers of Allah will love us too. And the lovers of Allah are Ahlillah, the ones who know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they see these meanings in our heart or glimpses of them, then this is also a good sign, right? It's a bishara that we might be in a good place, inshallah. So we're quickly running out of time. There's one section that I wanted to read to you. I'll just read the English part, inshallah. This is page 343 for those of you who are following along. He says, at the top, after some discussion, the Shaykh went on to say, knowing through information or the khabar comes to be seeing with direct vision, mu'ayana, and we've talked about this before. So from just hearing about something to actually feeling it in your heart, through a transformation that concerns your heart and the purity of your innermost being or your sir. This is why Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, as we said, even if the veil were removed, my certitude would be no greater. He also said, I do not worship a Lord I cannot see, and my heart has let me see my Lord. See him with his inner eye, right, with the basira of his heart. O ignorant ones, you must mingle with the scholars, serve them and learn from them. Knowledge received from the mouths of men. You must attend the sessions of the scholars on your best behavior and refrain from contradicting them. Try to benefit from them in order to acquire some of their knowledge, receive their blessings, and learn many useful lessons from them. In the company of the knowers, al-arifun, you must sit in silence, because that's the maqam of sitting with the arif, right? Which is higher than the other two he's mentioning here. And in the company of the zahidun, the abstinent, adopt a favorable attitude toward them, right? Don't you see them in, not partaking of the dunya and very simple and so forth. Don't have a negative opinion, have a good opinion. And then in terms of the arif, the one who can actually see and has penetrative inner sight, don't talk too much. The maqam usually is samt. And with our teachers, we would only say something or speak if we had like a legitimate question, and or if they asked us a question and they want to say something else. And we were content actually just to sit in their presence, and maybe none of us are saying anything, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to feel the need to make conversation and talk about silly things and things like that, even though the arif, the sheikh, might engage you in that way, but that's part of their, as he's going to mention later here, part of their exterior of al-bishr, al-wajh al-talq, right? This is a prophetic attribute of the Prophet ﷺ. Don't ever mistake that for thinking that they're simple-minded or somehow they actually care so much about how spicy the food was that was served today or not, or something like that. This is part of their kind of their outward rapport with people, because they're concerned about you and they want the best for you, and they want you. Part of their duty is tahbibaka ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They want to make Allah beloved to you. And so if you have, as we say, if you have these hopes in somebody, and you don't want to turn them away, you want them to bring them closer. So the talatuf, this ease and this gentleness that you notice about them, doesn't mean they're not serious, right? And their heart is not focused on their Lord. They are completely, but part of the outward or the exterior is يتلطف معك, يعني يلطف الجو. He or she makes the situation around you, and that's how the arif, as he mentions here later, the zahid, or maybe just people who are on the level of iman, their trepidation and their worry about their state with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come out on their face, and they may have this sort of lack of lutf. Well, not all of them, right? But some of them, the lack of like gentleness and ease, and you feel like you don't want to talk actually because it seems too serious, and you don't want to say something out of line. Sometimes that could be temperament and personality, but sometimes it's their spiritual state of zuhud, right? And so there is this, or ibadah, right? Al-Ubad wa zuhad, they have this khawf, right? And this constant kind of fear that the hal that they found in their ibadah, the particular hal, and not maqam, but hal, temporary state they found in their ibadah, will be limited or not extended, and so they're worried about that, and they feel like that's a sign from Allah that maybe they're not in the right place. Al-Arif, right, the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we said, has the guest house paradigm, and so this hal comes in, this hal goes out, but their maqam, their station with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, stays steady. And we'll read the words, it'll make more sense to you. So he says, the knower, the arif, is one who at every moment comes closer to Allah than he was the moment before. At every moment, his humility toward his Lord is renewed as his submissiveness toward him. He humbles himself to one who is present, not absent. Right? So, talab al-haq. So they're seeking their Lord, but it's not like he's not around. They know it's about them being in the right place to see their Lord. His humility increases in proportion to his nearness to his Lord, and his dumbness increases in proportion to his witnessing. Here, lack of speech, in other words. His mushahada, right? Because if you're busy with the mushahada, what are you going to say? Why would you speak? Why would you? They're in a different place. Unless yuntiquhumullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them nutq, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes them utter and pronounce, and then they'll say things, right, that will be beneficial to the khalq, that will be beneficial to people around them. When someone really knows Allah, yani ya'rifuhu, muteness becomes the tongue of his lower self, of the nafs, right? Because the nafs now is at bay. His natural impulses, his taba and his passions, his habits, his aada, and his existence. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يكون هواه تبعا لما جئت به. None of you truly believes until his hawa, these things he's talking about here, يعني your nafs, your taba, your hawa, becomes in line with that which I have come with. And this is the submission of the nafs to the qalb, right? And this is the hierarchy that the Shaykh talks about. So at your innermost being, your core is your sir. This is what communicates with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is where the ilhamat, mahal al-ilhamat, this is where the inspirations come to. And then the sir informs the qalb, right? Informs the heart. And then the qalb informs the nafs. So that means the nafs then becomes submissive and subservient to the qalb, which is getting its fountain and it's getting its nutrition, so to speak, and it's getting information from the sir. And then the limbs then, right, which are controlled by the heart, then will fall in line. And so they're not going to go this way or that way. Just like when the Prophet ﷺ saw the person who prayed and he told him pray, he prayed 3 times, he made him pray 3 times over. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, ahsanu ghayra, I can't do any better than this prayer that you saw. He said, Lo khasha qalbu la khasha jawarihu. He said, if his heart was in line, if his heart had khushu'ah, then his limbs would have followed. So that means the qalb, huwa as-sultan wal-musaytir ala jawarih. So the heart is the one in charge. If your heart is all over the place and the nafs sees an opening, then the nafs will take over, right? And so then that which the lower soul desires, and nafs al-ammara wal-lawama, what it desires, then will take the heart and sort of kidnap the heart, right? Your heart wasn't built, wasn't made. Its purpose is not just to follow the whims and passions and desires of your lower self. That's not what it's there for. But if the nafs finds an opening, then you will find that it will go follow this hawa, this tiba, and this lower passion. So when the Shaykh says here, when someone really knows Allah, muteness overcomes the tongue of the lower self. His natural impulses, his passions and his habits, and his existence, his wujud. As for the tongue of his heart, his innermost being, his spiritual state, his station, and his gift, ata, it speaks to declare the blessings he enjoys, right? Once the sir is now taking, right, التجليات يعني تفيض على السر. So it's witnessing, right? There's mushahada and at least muraqaba. This is why they sit with them in silence, with the awliya, with the arifun, to benefit from them and to drink the wine that matures in their hearts. Not real wine, people, the wine of meaning, of ma'ani. If someone mingles frequently with the knowers, the arifun of Allah, he comes to know his own self and becomes submissive to his Lord, right? اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. So have taqwa, but then what's going to help you with your taqwa? Be with as-sadiqeen, because the sidq that they have is going to rub off on you, and it will show you, give you insights into your own self. So he comes to know his own self and becomes submissive to his Lord. This is why it has been said that he who really knows his own self knows his Lord. من عرف نفسه عرف ربه, right? And we've said this many times. It is the self, it is the obstacle that is between the servant and his Lord. He who really knows his own self becomes humble toward Allah and his creatures. When he knows it well, he becomes wary of it, right? Now you know it's there to trick you, and it's, you know, and it's plotting. And now to be a knower of Allah means you know yourself. In other words, you know when it's talking to you, and you know then when to avoid it and when not to listen. So when he knows it well, he becomes wary of it and devotes himself to giving thanks to Allah for the knowledge of it, ma'rifat al-nafs. He realizes that he would not have given him that knowledge unless he wished him well in this world and the hereafter. So his outer, his zahir, is devoted to giving him thanks, shukr, and his inner batin to giving him praise, hamd. And this is sometimes the ulama talk about al-hamd wa shukr. And so this is one way of looking at it, that al-hamd bil-lisan, right? So when you say alhamdulillah, then that is a shukr bil-lisan. And amma shukr, fahuwa shukr bil-qalb, the gratitude in the heart. His outer is fragmented, but his inner is united. His happiness is within him, while his sorrow is on the surface to veil his spiritual state. Thus, the knower's condition is the reverse, the believer's, since the latter, yani the believer, keeps sadness in his heart, right, because they're worried about their hal, and wears his cheerfulness on his face to hide what's going on inside. The believer is an informed person, standing at the door, not knowing what is in store for him. Will he be accepted, or will he be rejected? Will the door be opened for him, or will it stay shut in his face? One who really knows his own self is therefore in contrast to the believer in every respect. In other words, al-Arif. The believer is the owner of a spiritual state, sahib hal, but the state is subject to change, while the knower, al-Arif billah, is the owner of a spiritual station, maqam, which is permanent, and the station is firmly established. The believer is afraid of the alteration of his state and the loss of his faith, as al-mu'min. So his sadness is always in his heart, and his cheerfulness always on his face, concealing his sadness. He may smile on your face when he speaks to you, but his heart is separated by his sadness. In other words, there's farq, what the Sufis call at-tafarruq. There's no jama', right? Al-farq means that the heart is not connected 100% to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so there's this trepidation. As for the knower, his sadness shows on his face because he presents creatures with the face of warning when he is in the maqam to show them the face of warning. Otherwise, there's bishr, there's talat al-wajh, as we said before. He questions them and gives them commandments and prohibitions on behalf of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, I think we're out of time. And alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.